Dang it. I always do that. Welcome in, everybody. Glad to have you here. We got a full house on both ends. I got a bunch of rep team people here, so we're excited to hang out with you. Normally it's not this full, so you're probably shocked to see how many people on this end. And that's part of the plan here. We wanted you guys to get some inside look into our team, who we all are, and be able to ask your questions. So this is, we do these lives every Thursday. This one is focused on what we offer in coaching and what that looks like for you. And so we wanted to be here to answer questions. Before we jump into that, though, let's see what's going on in the chat and where everybody's from. Dave, New Bern, North Carolina. It's really hot and humid today, so anything north sounds good to me. Rod, is it where you are? Because you're northern Florida. Is it hot and humid, or is it more dry right now? I know that's like not an important question. I'm just genuinely curious.
We got a breeze over here, so it's nice and windy. So walks are good.
Yeah, walks are not good here.
Here soon, it will not be so nice to walk outside.
Walks are swims in Miami right now. So let's see, Patricia from Long Island. Very cool. If you guys don't mind, everybody comment where you're at in your business. So if you're just starting, you're thinking about starting, you already have a business. If you've been to another live, you know the drill. We always like to see where everybody's at. Helps us tailor our questions and things we talk about to give you the most value. So then also, while you're at it, who was here for the Todd live Q&A last Thursday, the metrics discussion? I thought it was pretty funny. I don't know. I think some of you here on my team got the chance to see it, but it was a metrics. It was about making data-driven decisions, and like 60% of it was about emotion, which I thought was very funny going into like a decision-making thing. But we talked about how if you let your emotions dictate, you can't make data-driven decisions. And so we kind of backed up that process and like at least walk through a little bit of how we look at that. And it's always fun to have Todd's input because during the live, he showed like the back end of his business. And he was talking about how he makes data-driven decisions. And I was like having trouble focusing because of how big the numbers were. I was like, that's how much revenue you guys have done. We were like 11 days into April and it was like 100-something thousand already. So that was cool to see. There's levels to this game for sure. Dave said, practicing to get my drone license from New York, retired police officer from Puerto Rico. Very nice. Cheryl, you were here Thursday. Cool. Glad you thought it was insightful. Cheryl also said established business overworked. Cheryl, where are you at? I'd love to dive in a little bit. Not location wise, but how long have you been in business? How many shoots a day are you doing? Do you have any team members, anything like that? We'd love to hear. Let's see how we're going to do this. So what I'd love to do first of all is, well, Kenny, how do you want to do this? We can just go into questions. Does anybody have any questions specifically about coaching in here, how that works? Wanted to bring our team so we could answer anything that came to mind. I think one thing we wanted to do mainly, I always like to be transparent, is a lot of people are, I think, turned off by any kind of online coaching programs because there's been historically so much not good education out there online. Like a lot of people thought starting an online coaching program was like the way to make a lot of money. And so there are a lot of, I don't want to say scams. I mean, there are a lot of scams, but there are a lot of stuff that, the people were just selling a dream and not delivering and not helping you work towards that. And I always, think the antidote to that is an awesome team. Like my success is because of the team that I have. And the reason we're able to get awesome results for our clients is not because we have the secret formula. It's because we have an awesome team that helps you every step of the way. And so right now there's either 17 or 18 of us on the rep team. And this is the group you have here today. So first of all, thank you to my team for being here. It's been a fun ride building coaching over we've been doing education related products for about 4 years now and coaching for about 2. And it's just been so fun to transition to that. So usually it was just, hey, here's a course, good luck. And now we get to work with them. So if you have any questions about coaching, drop them in there. So this is a good one actually for you, Rod. So some of you may have talked to Rod in here. So if you've talked to Rod, let us know. Hopefully all good things. I can almost guarantee that's the case, but if it's bad too, let us know. And Cheryl's saying no team members, up above male dynamic. How is the market for rep coaching in Milwaukee? How do you look at that, Rod? So Rod, you're who people talk to when they first are looking at coaching. You help them figure out if it fits. Like, what are the things you look for?
Basically in their location.
Yeah. Their location is Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, like first is like if I actually recognize it. So that's like a first good sign. I'm like, hey, I know what that is. So chances are people live there. So that's one. And then I'll go look at population. I remember that was like one of the first things I asked you here because I was just kind of confused, like what's not good? Like, is it an island in the middle of somewhere, like where like there's no homes? Like, what's the low? And it's, you know, we look at less than 50,000 people within an hour radius of the person. So if someone tells me they live in a certain spot and there's 7,000 people that live there, okay, bring up a map, scroll out, find, you know, cities that have bigger font size, right? And that way, that one's might be bigger. Let me look at that. And ooh, now there's 280,000. And how far is this from you? So I'll start to kind of like, I love using maps and numbers. So I get to do that every day, which is kind of cool. So I get to look at the map and really make sure location wise that it makes sense, that it's hitting those metrics. Then we'll look at the real estate data, right? We'll look at how many homes were listed, how many homes were sold, what's the average house price, how long did it take to sell. So I'm just kind of having these metrics in my mind of what is a good area. And if it's not meeting it or close to it, then I just go to y'all and say, okay, you know, are y'all comfortable? Does it look good? And then you just deep dive. So
what I'm going to do
through it,
is I'm going to kind of show that live, because that's the biggest thing. I think we can see my screen here. So just to look, I definitely spelled Milwaukee wrong. But just to show you live what we look for here is the first thing is population. So Rod said this, if it's above 50,000, you're pretty much good, but we'll look in more in depth than that. Milwaukee, obviously a big city. So the next thing we're going to want to look at is how many homes are for sale. Let's see how we spell this. Milwaukee.
That's half the you know, if I didn't have like spell check or Google autocorrect, like I just wouldn't, it would take hours. How do you spell that?
Okay. Oh, I spelled it wrong again. Sorry, everybody.
There's no way. We'll never be able to spell it.
So what we do is once we know, we're going to look either way at more than just population, but it gives us an insight into what to look at. And so the next step, as Rod was saying, is to look at how many homes are for sale. And you can do this for your own market. We'd obviously love to help you with that process. And so if you want help, Kenny, if you could put the link on the screen for everybody. For a coaching open house, we should probably have the link on the screen to figure out where you can learn more about coaching. But what we do, I'm a big fan of the Rocket Homes data. Theirs is the easiest to find this. So what we'll do, first of all, if you look at just the city like I did, it's not going to be as accurate as the county. So we really want to look at the county and see how much the real estate data is there. So usually I'll just type in and see what county that's in and see if it's Milwaukee County or if it's something else. County, yeah. So we'll type in this and then we'll say real estate data. And I'm going to find that same one again if I can, the Rocket Homes. I think it's just doing the city again, but either way, that's okay because it's always going to give us better data if we do the county. So this will be like a pretty conservative data to look at. So right now there's 1,653 homes for sale. Now that's kind of irrelevant to us because in a slow market, there could be, 1,600 homes might take a few months to get listed. So we really want to see the number of homes listed and the number of homes sold. So right here is the number of homes sold. Now, if you've been in real estate media for a while, you might be thinking, hey, Eli, like that's not a super accurate representation of the market because we don't get paid when the homes sell. We get paid when they get listed. So this is the first thing we look for because this number makes it look worse. So it's always going to be better than this number makes it look. So for example, in March in Milwaukee, and this is just the city, it didn't pull the actual county data, 433 homes sold. So it's safe to say about probably 20% more than that were listed. So there were about 500 to 600 homes listed. And then what you can do with that is get an idea of the market size. So you could say, okay, there were 500 homes listed. The average order value is going to be $250. So we can do some math to figure out the total market size. So 500, I'm doing it on my calculator here, times 250 gives us $125,000. And so what we're using that data to see is that potentially there is $125,000 per month in real estate photography market in Milwaukee. Now, there is no way you will ever get even a huge percentage of that, right? Because there's going to be other photographers. Some of those homes don't have professional photography, but it gives you an idea. So you know that it's going to be a fairly realistic thing if the city itself, not even the surrounding area, has $125,000 a month in potential real estate business. It wouldn't be a stretch to think you could get 10 grand of that, right? That wouldn't be a crazy thing to say. It would be crazy to think you're going to get 100% or 99% of that. And so we look at that. Sometimes you'll see, hey, this person lives relatively in the middle of nowhere. There's only like $1,000 a month in potential real estate market. That's not going to be somebody that we would be able to help in coaching. And so the first thing we do with coaching is make sure that we can actually help you. And so we look at your market and that's what Rod and the rest of our team on that side, some of you may have talked to Philippe or Andrew. We have Aaron on our team. And those are the people that their job is to help you figure out if this is actually going to work because we're one thing I really care about, and we talked about this at the start, is there's a lot of kind of scammy online programs out there that promise the world and don't deliver. Well, we don't want to build one of those. And so we back up what we do with a guarantee based upon your situation. We can't offer that guarantee if we're not sure about you, how many hours you have available, your situation. And so that's why we have Rod and his team there able to talk to you about this, because we want to be able to help you for your exact scenario. We want to say, hey, do you work 9 to 9 right now? Because if you work 12 hours a day, there's not going to be time to help you, right? And we're not going to just sell you a dream that you can't make happen. But if you work 9 to 5, there's enough time to fit a shoot in the evening. And so then we just have to go, okay, well, how much money do you need to quit your job? And then we can start doing some math with you. If you've talked to Rod, that's something you'll know that he enjoys, is being able to break down numbers on what's possible. And one thing that always, I agree with the Rod's a cool dude. Anyway, the one thing that's really important that I always did, that maybe really important as a stretch, it helped me, is I always like to be able to break down the things that I want to happen revenue-wise or income-wise based upon actual numbers. So I know, hey, if I need a new car and that car is going to cost me $500 a month, like how many shoots am I going to have to do to afford that? And so we kind of jokingly call it money math. It's not really a joke, but I literally, when I was first building my business, back when it was just me, and like every dollar you make from a shoot is basically yours, like 10, 15% goes to expenses, but you do a shoot, it's mostly your money. And I would literally go, okay, if I want to buy this new computer, this new camera or whatever, it'd be like, this is 6 real estate shoots. Like I judge the cost of things, not in dollars, but in amount of real estate shoots. And I think that's a cool thing to get in the habit of. And that's what we start with when you do that initial call with Rod or someone on our team, is they basically do that with you. They're like, okay, what's your goal? You need to make $5K a month? Okay. How many real estate shoots is that? Well, it's going to be about $250 per shoot. So each $1,000 is 4 shoots. You need to make 5,000. So that's 4 times 5. It's about 20. You need to do 20 real estate shoots a month. And so that's what we want to talk you through, is what that looks like. Anything you wanted to add to that specifically, Rod, or anybody else on the team? And no pressure if not, but cool.
Well, no, I mean, I it's that, and it's other factors too. Just like, we just want to make sure someone's just ready for it, to like the next 6 months, to really, treat it like they're going to the gym, and just to give me some hint that that's there, so when you ask someone their why and all that, it's to make sure that we're matching coaching to them, and that it's very customized to the person. So we want to know, like, what do you, I want to know the situation, I want to know the income goals, and I want to know the lifestyle goal. Once we know all that, we can do a lot of math and project towards those. But it is work too. The math is the math. So on paper, I'll know, hey, it's possible, but it's just going to take that, staying in tune with the process, using all the tools that you have at hand, and, really, sticking to it like the gym, essentially. So we're looking at that too as well. So the math combined with that gives me a pretty good idea. Like, hey, if I say I feel like this could happen, I really do mean that. And it's based on several factors that you just kind of start to get after a while, once you start having a lot of calls. And it's never fluff. And if I feel like someone can't do that, I'll ask some more questions and just kind of feel that out. And I won't be like, hey, totally, come on down. I don't want them to find out the hard way and be like, this is not what I thought. That's like always my fear. So yeah, it's fun. It's like, we get to kind of figure it out and figure out, it's like a puzzle, and you kind of put it together. So
the fun thing too with our industry, and I want to move into what, especially you, Ariana, Karen, and Dave see in terms of what makes a student successful. But the thing to keep in mind before we get to that question is, the nice thing about starting a real estate photography business and any business that's been done before is there's kind of like a proven steps to follow, right? It's not like a make it or fail business. And so that's why it becomes so important. And what Rod was saying is, like, you have to be the person that's willing to actually put in the work and follow the steps. And that's really important. And probably one of the things that our coaching team is going to echo and say, like, hey, it's the people who do the work. But I guess, Karen, starting with you, like, is there any specific things that you've seen, whether it's traits or mindsets or whatever, that's made people really successful? Like people who just crush their guarantee and they're getting to 10 grand by the end of the 6 months or whatever. What do you typically see from them?
Yeah, well, one, I think they're determined. And so two, they're also, because they are determined, they're willing to take the bumps and the bruises, and they're willing to keep looking for solutions to obstacles. It's like, instead of seeing what's kind of coming up against them as a problem, they see it as just a learning opportunity and a way to keep growing. And then they're very receptive to the resources in the program. They use them all. They do their one-on-one coaching. They go to the group coaching calls. They are in the community. They show up for the Q&As. They do all of that.
Yeah, that's really good too. And this is not just, hey, I'm not trying to make our coaching program look like we have all these good resources just to get you excited. The reason we have those resources is because they help us work with you to get you to at least the guarantee that we've made to you, right? And that's why those tools are there. And, for example, Karen, Dave, Ariana, and Brad, those are our one-on-one coaches. They're the ones that work with you in the one-on-one, but they also host group calls. I host a group call. All of our team, our leadership team hosts a group call. We have guest experts that are people who have been through coaching and absolutely crushed it. And even people like Todd is one of our coaches in our Forward program, and he hosts a group call. And I think that's really cool because one thing that I missed out on, and I use the word missed out, I think maybe that's not the right one. I was not smart enough. I was too foolish to go seek out was other people who were a step ahead of me, or in the case of Todd, 10 steps ahead of me. And that's really valuable too. And so I love that you said that, because a lot of people go like, I have a one-on-one coach. What do I need the group calls for? And it's like, well, you get different perspectives. You learn from different people. And so I'm glad you said that. Ariana, is there anything you've seen just, besides what Karen said, maybe, or maybe if it's just echoing that's makes people successful, or like, what are the people you enjoy coaching and what are those traits?
Well, yeah, I'll echo what Karen said, but what I'm noticing is that the people who really want to serve and they love to help people, and they're coming from, how can I do more? How can I do more? And then also, if something happens, that they're not out there blaming, that they're like, how could I do better? And they're the students who, after a free shoot, they're calling up and saying, I really want honest feedback. Anything I could improve on. And they're open to our feedback, and they are applying what we're saying and applying what the agent's saying to improve. They're not taking it personally, like, oh, that was terrible. How could that person say that to me at all? They're just so open to growing. I would say that like 100%.
It's funny too, because a lot of times, and Rod, you get this question more than any of us, but it's, well, if there's already photographers in my market, how do I stand out? How am I able to build a business? And what Ariana just said is the answer to that, right? Like, you win. This is a service business, right? And happens to be the category of business, right? We're providing a service in exchange for money. But if you really go down to what that means, like, you provide the best service and a ton of clients are going to come your way. And that service is not the photos you deliver. That's a part of it, but it's the service you provide, the experience, the way a client feels working with you. And I'm not talking about fluffy stuff that doesn't mean anything. I'm saying you show up on time or 5 minutes early because you said you will, and so you meet your expectations. You put in the effort to dress respectfully, right? You look presentable because you represent the agent's brand. When you're in that shoot, you go out of your way to clean up the house a little bit. You spend that 15 minutes, right? Because you're trying to, your idea, the thing you're coming from, or like the sort of energy that you have is, hey, like, I want this client, this agent to feel like I'm on their team. I'm not just a vendor they've hired to do real estate photos. And if you do that, you spread like crazy with referrals. We talk so much about the Instagram method, right? The Instagram method is the secret to getting the ball rolling, that snowball rolling down the hill. It doesn't keep the snowball rolling. You do that through referrals. If you look at Norman and Young, we have well over 1,000 clients now. A very, very, very small percentage of them came from the Instagram method. You have to do it at the start, and the Instagram method is going to determine how fast that snowball starts rolling. And when you're working with us in coaching, our goal is to make it happen fast for you. That's most people's their dream outcome. If they work with us in coaching, it's like, hey, let's make it happen fast, right? And so you have to put in the work that first 6 months. But the idea is, a year from now, year and a half, 2 years from now, your business is growing faster than it was when you were doing the Instagram method, when you're not doing anything. And that's what I love about real estate media so much, is you do get that compounded growth. The best thing is, all you have to do is people have to like you. If they like you, they'll like doing business with you, and they'll keep using you. And that's the secret also, on a side note, to being able to charge premium prices. If you're trying to undercut everybody, you're going to get what you get when you undercut, which is a business that has no money and you're not happy about it. And then that, it's that, if you've heard of the vicious cycle of price, is you try to undercut, so you can't provide as good of a service, so you're unhappy, so you try to undercut, so you can, and then you just go in this circle. There's the virtuous cycle of prices, an Alex Hormozy thing that I love, which is you charge more, you're able to provide more service, you're happier and your clients are happier, so you're able to charge more, so then you can provide better service, and you go in that circle, right? It's the virtuous cycle versus vicious. Dave, anything, you have the last and hardest position because they've already said good stuff. Do you have anything you want to add to that from your experience?
Yeah. Well, just one thing, ditto to everything that's been said. I would say take an owner's mindset. In other words, you're not just a photographer.
Mhm.
You are the owner operator of a real estate media company. And if you act like that, talk like that, think like that, it's amazing how much faster I think you can have success. So I would think that to me is a key. And I see people achieving results quickly. We've had 2 people this week that barely just started that are already out there doing shoots from
Mhm.
following the program because they really adopted that mindset. So
Yeah. It's a scary mindset to adopt. And so I understand why people could be hesitant to, because it's like, I remember it felt more peaceful to me when I was first starting, when I could kind of like 1 foot in, it's like, I'm trying this. Like there's something about when you commit that scares you. And I think it's usually your fear of what other people are going to think. But anybody have any thoughts on if you're feeling that way, like how to handle that or how to work through that? I know that's kind of a tough question, but I remember that very, very, like, it's imposter syndrome, right? Like at its core, you're like, man, I'm not a real estate man. I'm just like trying this thing. It's kind of like I didn't feel like a business owner. I remember I had made business cards for the first time, and I like designed them on Vistaprint and got them in. Don't make business cards. That's not the lesson here. Please do not do that, anybody. You don't need them. But I remember when I opened the box and I got them, I was literally the most embarrassed I've ever been in my life. I'm like, Eli, what are you doing? Like business cards? Come on. Like, it was just like, I felt like that cringe, that overwhelm, that what am I doing? I'm not a photographer. Like I'm starting a business. That's like, you feel that it's just imposter syndrome at its core. But I don't know. Anyone have any thoughts specifically on how to overcome that besides just going through it?
I think, Eli, if I may add, it's all about connections with people. And so if you're getting good feedback from agents and the agents become friends, it's like it doesn't feel like work. I know it sounds weird, but it's I'm doing something that I'm good at. I'm doing something I love. I'm being paid for. And that's one of the reasons I love the idea about building a business. It becomes like family. And you get to choose your family. You get to choose who you're going to work with. And it's less about turning up and being something or someone or having an act or an identity. It's creating relationships and serving them really well. And it's like, oh, I'm riding the bike. Oh, I've got a good business. Oh, I'm making money. And you look back and it was like, I did it.
There's nothing that I think gets rid of that feeling than just doing it, right? Because then you don't, like, that's the worst part about staying on the sidelines is you actually just let yourself feel that awful feeling longer. And one thing that I always like to bring up is that feeling is usually a good indication that you're doing something you should be doing because it's something new, right? I talked about this on a live, and I always try to share my experiences because whether it was experience I had then or now, whenever I heard people say that, especially when I was first starting, it was like, wow, that's how everybody feels. And that's very comforting. And it's funny, you'll have like the littlest things at the start of your business will create that feeling. So for me, it was business cards, right? And then maybe it was the first shoot or maybe the first broker deal. I remember that one, the guy wanted me to come meet with him in his office. And I was like in the car outside, super scared, and then it wasn't even a sale. He was like, it was actually really funny. He was like, whenever this contract with this current photographer ends, I'm going to switch to you. And it was like 5, 6K a month in business. And I knew that we weren't doing that much money. We're doing like 4K. And I was so concerned with trying to get the business that I told him we'd give him a discount, and he blew it up. He like didn't listen. And then it was like either a second time in that meeting or we had a second meeting. I think it was then I said again, and he didn't say anything, kind of brushed it off. And silly Eli called him and was like, hey, like, I know we talked about a discount. And he goes, I don't want a discount, in longer words than that on the call. And I just thought it was so funny. So that's another story. But the thing is that created that imposter syndrome, right? Is like me going to meet with that brokerage, and then the little things don't anymore. But then we did our first conference for Real Estate Photographer Pro in 2022 in Miami. And man, like the month before, it was like the only number I had in my head was how many days until the conference. Like, and that was the scary thing for me, right? And like, I'd be laying there like at night. Everybody's had this, right? For different things. I feel like, oh my gosh, like you just get that adrenaline rush. You're like, what am I doing? Who am I? Why am I throwing a conference? I was the kid who at that point, it was 7 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. And I just wanted somebody else to do this. And so it was kind of cool that I was doing it, but I also had that fear of like, oh my gosh. And then we did a conference again in 2023 in Vegas. And it was like the night before only. I was a little like, shoot. And so like your tolerance builds. And I think that's an important thing to know is like, it won't always feel like this. And a lot of people go, oh, if it feels like this, I don't want anything to do with starting a business. And so the key is just pushing through it. And everybody goes through it. It's a thing. It's like, there's that quote on courage that it's like, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's in despite of fear doing it anyway, or something along those lines. And I think that's really true. And that always, whenever I heard people that were ahead of me saying I had that too, I was like, perfect, I'm on track. You know, it's not this big scary thing. Anybody have any questions in the comments in the questions? I think I phrased that wrong. Either way, back to the first Q&A issue, Kenny. I love that. If anybody has any questions, please put them in the comments. We'd love to answer them for you. And if anybody on my team has any thoughts or things you'd like to jump into, go for it. We have another at least 15 minutes to hang out with everybody.
Eli, Angel, I'm sorry, Karen. Hey, Eli, what do you have to say about people who have doubts about joining the program? Don't know if you missed that. There was a question.
I didn't. Oh, I see that right there. Yeah, I didn't see that. I mean, the biggest thing is you should have doubts. I think it's important to be careful who you learn from, and you want to make sure that not only like who you learn from is important, but that you actually want to do this business, that's something that's important to you. And the hard part is you can't usually get through that doubt without getting more information. And so I would highly encourage you, if you haven't talked to Rod on the team yet, he's here. We have some other great people on the team who are probably talking to people right now about this, and that's why they're not here. And so they'd love to talk with you. And, we're an open book. I think one thing that I think is very unfortunate generally is that there is a lot of bad online education. And I think it's a absolutely wonderful way to learn. And I think there are a few bad apples that kind of make everybody not interested in it. And man, I wish I wouldn't have had that mindset early on. And so we're trying to create that business that it's a great experience working with. More broadly, I think the way education is done today doesn't really work for a lot of people. And so I think it's really cool that the team here and I get to be part of building that new type of education that helps people. It's faster than the traditional route, especially if you're considering college. And there's an outcome that you get. I think that's really cool. And I think ownership is good for people too. I like when people have the chance. It's a good exercise in personal development, and the outcomes are cool. So all that to say, we'd love to talk with you and see where that doubt's coming from and give you as much information as you need to make that decision. One thing we hear a lot is that people say, hey, I need time. And yeah, of course you need time to make a decision, but you need information to make a decision as well. And so we'd love to provide that for you. And obviously I put a lot of information out on YouTube, but as far as coaching specifically goes, that's why we're doing a live like this. I wanted you to see some of our awesome team and just get a little bit more behind the scenes. So if you have any specific questions, please feel free to ask them in there.
Eli, can I add to that what you were just saying? Because I think sometimes when you have doubts about joining the program, it's not necessarily just about the program, right? They might have doubts about themselves. Like, am I capable of doing this? Am I capable of being a business owner? And so I think in exploring not just what the program has to offer, but it's like, what are you really afraid of when it comes to growing a business?
Yeah. I think you guys would have a great insight into this, the rest of our coaching team. Like, what are the bigger fears or mindset challenges that you see when you're, especially this first few months or first month, really, when it's a lot, right? You're going through like rep boot camp basically, and you're going through the checklist. The cool thing with coaching is we've helped so many people through the launch process, and we'll talk about forward coaching in a second, but launch is for people just starting, that there is a science to the things you need to do in the order you need to do them. So all of that's laid out, but that doesn't mean it's not work. And it's not challenging from a mindset perspective. So, what do you have on that? Anybody feel free to jump in about.
I was actually going to say, funny you brought up the checklist, but you were asking about traits earlier. And one of the traits I think that I've seen just from the forward side of things, looking at the people coming out of launch, the ones that have been extremely successful have been the ones that have been able to also slow down and follow the checklist. So many people just want to hit the ground running, and they want to be making money right now. But the checklist is there for a reason. It's in place for a reason. And if you start to get ahead of it, or if you start to do the Instagram method and all that stuff without really understanding or having an order page, you can burn a lot of bridges that, because you're already putting that first impression out there. So successful people that I've seen have been ones that can slow down. Don't think you're going to sign up for coaching and suddenly you're making 10 grand that month. It's not one of those things. You need to follow the checklist for a reason. And the checklist is in place for a reason.
Yeah.
So I just like I said, seeing the people that have been successful in launch, I think that's very, very important.
Well, because it's not coaching we do for 6 months because speed is important in business. I always use the analogy of a lot of people try to be really careful And that's like a plane trying to go down the runway really slowly to avoid all the bumps. Like, it doesn't matter how long that runway is if that plane's not getting off the ground unless it achieves a certain amount of speed. But like Brad's saying, the other side of it is true, is if you don't plan anything and you just send it, a lot of bad stuff can happen, you know, if you're just going full power, not thinking. And so there's a balance. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is when you're starting a business, I would expect that you're not thinking about this as a good 2-month thing. You're saying, hey, I want to put in the work and build a business. And I want that business to be something that's a value and asset to me for years, right? And so a lot of people forget about that. And it's so pedal to the metal in the short term that they just build this wildly out of control business. And we see that a lot. I think, you know, especially if you've recently built your business to 15, 20, 25K a month stage, 30, maybe 35, and you're listening, it's really easy to build a business that's just not that profitable and everything's chaotic. I built one of those businesses, right? And that, they say a lot of entrepreneurs build things to fix their own problems or the problems they used to have. And that is 100% what Real Estate Photographer Pro is, right? It's like, man, I was so stupid and everything I did was an error. And so I can prevent people from doing that. And one of the biggest things, and a quote I love, is more businesses die of indigestion than starvation, right? Whether that means they try to do too much or they try to do too quickly and they don't have a measured. There's a quote I really like, again, not to be quote heavy here, but it's from Gary Vee. He says, macro patience, micro speed. I think that's a great balance. Is you have to have patience for the big picture things, and you have to know where you're going, and you have to have plans in place. But every day you need to have that micro speed. You need to be taking those steps every day, because just patience alone doesn't build a business, but neither does a chaotic, do everything quickly, not very thoughtfully. So you have to balance that. And I'm glad you brought that up, Brad. Let's see if we have any questions. Oh, any advice for when you mess up? Tell us what the mess up was, but yes, big picture advice. Anybody want to dive into that one?
Well, I would dive in and say, admit it immediately and apologize and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. How can I make it right? And just go over the top when you mess up. And I think we all mess up, and it makes us human and humble, and it endears us to people. And again, it's a people business. It's a relationship business. So adding to that is just admit it. How can I do better? How can I make it right?
It's so funny. We were just talking on the members live back to back with this one about how if you have, let's say you make a mistake, right? You forget to shoot a room in a house. There's a bunch of different mistakes you can make, but you go to a house, you forget to shoot a room. You and that agent goes, and you realize, you're like, oh man, like I made a mistake. You can actually have a stronger relationship with that client if you fix the mistake well than you could have had without any mistake in the first place. And so what we were talking about on that training was basically, hey, mistakes are opportunities. Like, those are opportunities for you to learn how to, and admitting it's a great first step, right? A lot of people just try to pretend they didn't blame it. You blame, it's like, there's this, there's a quote I like, which doesn't fully apply here, but it's, do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? And a lot of people want to be right, even when they're not, so hard that they prevent themselves from a business opportunity. And I think rich is maybe a charged word, but like, do you want to have success or do you want to be right about something? And I think that's really important to keep in mind. And it's just so funny how we had a photographer early on. I said this in the last Q&A, and I love this. Not a good example of this in action, but they would be, every time they were late, they'd be like, honestly, I just like being a few minutes late. It gives me something to apologize for. And like, that always irritated me really bad, because I'm like, we are not late. We show up on time. But the essence of that is so true. It's like, you can mess up, and you fixing that mess up can actually make them think better of you, because so many people don't own up to their mistakes, right? They're just so scared. And so I thought that was great that you brought that up, Ariana, because we literally just talked about that on the last one. How many employees would you need to step back from the business? That's a good question. It depends on your goals, I would say. So you could step back and sacrifice profit, right? You could step back too soon and maybe not have to do any work, but not make as much money. You could work in the business longer and make more profit, but then you're not stepping back. So it depends on your goals. I would say stepping back from shooting and being more of the admin would happen around 20K a month, 15 to 20K. You'd start hiring photographers, and then, 2-3 photographers in, you're doing 30 to 40K a month, and you're just the admin. You're not shooting anymore. It's the first level of stepping back. And then the next level of stepping back would be, you're not the admin anymore. There's kind of like this admin CEO role, and it splits at some point, and there's admin and there's CEO, and you hire the admin. Now you're not doing that work. You're not answering the phone, but you're still running the business, right? And then you hire eventually someone to run the business for you. And For us at Norman and Young, that happens somewhere around, $80K a month. And that's what Norman and Young looks like now. Is I don't run the business daily. We have a CEO, Trent. He does a great job, and there's a team under him. And so it really depends on your goals. I think you're always going to make more money if you don't step back, but then you have to go, hey, what's the goal? Is money the goal? Maybe I have what I need. Maybe I'm comfortable with this amount and I want to do things with my family or travel or whatever. And so the cool thing is I use the word asset to describe your business before. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, when people are weighing being a business owner versus working a job, they forget that the business is an asset. It's not simply about being able to make more money. It's not simply about having more freedom. It's that business you created is something you own, and it gives you options, right? You can decide to scale it. You can decide not to. You can decide to try to make it as profitable and small and easy as you can. You have all these options, and assets give you options, right? That's the thing to consider. You can't, I always think about this. We had a guy on my YouTube channel a while back named Jack who sold his business. He started it, and I think 3 years later sold it for about, I think it was 300, was it 325,000, Kenny?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think it was 325. And it just brought something to mind is like, you can't sell a job when you leave, right? So even if real estate photography is not your lifelong thing, which I don't think it's going to be anybody's, right? It's a tool you use. Maybe there's, Todd's owned his business for 20 years. But it's an asset that you can sell or that it has value. You could pass it to somebody else. You can hire people to run it. I think that's really cool and something to consider. So that's good. How did you end up with the name Norman and Young? We'll just hit some Q&A while we're at it. So that is, my middle name is Norman, and Aaron, my brother, is Young. And so we just threw those names together. We get a lot of people like, sounds like a law firm. Like, it's not really, but it's close enough, Okay, let's see if there's anything to talk
There's
about.
a question about forward. If you want to start talking about forward, I'll find the question. But I think the student or the person wanted to know a little bit more about forward. And
Yeah, I'm trying to find the question here. Yeah, so we have 2 programs. We have Launch and we have Forward. Launch is for you if you're just starting, whether that's $0 a month, you're making $1,000 or $2,000, and you want to go full in, you want to be launched, you want to have your business accelerate quickly. And that program is what we've been talking about a lot. Now, Forward is a little different. Forward is if you already have an established real estate media business. Established doesn't mean $30K a month. It could be somewhere around $5K a month even. But because there's such a range of people we work with in Forward, and because every business is different, the process works a little differently. So every stage, it's a 6-month program. We break it up into 6 stages. And at each stage, we go through what we call a COST acronym, which is just an acronym that stands for clients, owners, systems, and team. And we say, hey, out of those 4 buckets, which of those in your business, if we fixed or put some of our systems in place for, would most improve the business the most quickly with the least amount of effort, right? So maybe that's at first, you're at $5K a month, clients, right? We just need more clients. So we install our client systems for you. We teach you how to use the Instagram method. We make sure everything's good. Maybe we help you with Facebook ads, depending on where you're at. We do these things, right? And then clients aren't the problem as much anymore. You're growing, you have more clients coming in, but you're like, wait a second, I can't handle all these clients, right? Maybe that's month 2, or maybe you're in that position right now, right? It's like, oh, I can't handle all these clients. So we need to show you how we hire at Norman & Young. So we give you our Indeed job posting, everything we do. We show you how we structure it. We help you interview, and we help you put a photographer in place that your clients are going to love. A lot of people are worried about their clients and that new photographer not being as good. We help you get over that and fix it in your business. And then it's like, okay, well, now I fixed that problem. Well, now I need more clients again. So then we go back to the clients thing and fix that. And so building a business is just going through constantly solving bottlenecks. Maybe you find, hey, we have a photographer now. Our systems aren't that good. So we help you set up your order form in a way that gets you more average order value, more money per shoot. Or maybe we set up your back-end system so your photographers are scheduled more efficiently. So there's all these different things, right? And that's the cool thing about coaching is it's not just, hey, here's a course, good luck. It's like, we're going to work with you and work with you through those various issues at those different stages, because every business is going to have different bottlenecks. So that's an overview of what Forward looks like. If you have any specific questions, let me know. And also for everybody else, whether it's Launch or Forward, if you just want to talk with the team, go to replaunch.com/apply. And that's the good news about what you like. You don't have to make a decision, right? Talk with them and they're going to go through your market, everything, make sure that we can actually help you with your goals, and you'll have an opportunity to have a call with them, which is good. Let's see. Dave said, getting a lot out of this. Thank you so much. I'll definitely be getting a setup call. I'm excited to talk with you, Dave.
Nice.
Let's see. Freedom is what I'm excited for. Yeah, I think the thing I like to consider about this is there's different types of freedom, and it's going to mean different things to you at different stages. So maybe at first it's just, hey, I don't want to have a boss, right? Maybe the person or the company you work for doesn't value you, or it's not great. maybe the freedom comes with more money, or maybe the freedom comes with whatever. Like a lot of times in my business, I didn't feel like I had freedom because I was working so much. But then I realized, hey, I chose that. I was trying to grow my business so that in the future I could have. And so that's the cool thing is I think freedom is not necessarily, and I don't know how you define it, but it's not that you're not working. It's not that you're not doing a lot of work. It's just that it's on your own terms. So that's kind of for me what's important. Like, you know, I no matter how big my businesses get, I love what I get to do. And so I just work, right? It's not like, oh, I love all this time off. But maybe it is that for you, right? Maybe you want to spend more time with your family. And that's what I think is cool when I was talking about it being an asset, is you get to decide what that looks like. But it's not going to be easy, right? You're going to have to put in work. I don't think anybody should go into a business thinking, hey, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to do these things and I'm going to make great money. And it's going to be like, business is a development, it's personal development. It's, you know, a lot of skill building. It's just like, there's so much that goes into it. And so I think it's the ultimate challenge in a way. And that's what is fun for me.
And I think when you mentioned businesses allow you to have opportunities. There's a comment about it too. They just want to be with their families. And that was one of Warren's main decisions why he pretty much dropped out of becoming a doctor. He was in the process of that. And then he joined coaching, and then, you know, he grinded for months, and now he is having a successful business. He's ready to hire. We're talking about that now. And but yeah, everybody has their different whys. And that's why, you know, Rod mentioned it earlier in this live. You know, it's like we get to ask you, like, what are your whys? Because freedom can mean a lot of different things. And for you know, this is a great example. He just wants to be with his family, and I think that's a great, you know, freedom opportunity right there.
Yeah. What so on that, like, what do you see on the coaching side? What are people's initial goals? Is it mostly getting out of the 9 to 5? Is it a little more financial stability, or like what's driving a lot of the people that we get to work with?
Well, a lot of the people I work with don't like their jobs, and so they want to get out of their jobs. So I would say that's the number one thing. And then I would say the number two thing is the financial security, or, you know, because when you're working for someone, you don't really get to control how much you make. But when you have your own business, you know, you get to go after it as much as you want to create what you want. And so I think for my students, sometimes those are the number two things.
Yeah. It's all about the stages, right? Like you have to, when you get to that point, okay, the first thing is, man, I just want to get out of this job, right? And you get out of the job, and then you start going, this is nice. Okay, now I want to make more than I made in the job. I will say, this is the thing I really wanted to ask, is like, everybody's like, what are your favorite wins? Mine always is the I quit my job thing. And like, I'm always 30% scared, 70% excited, because I'm like, man, that's a big decision, but really good for them. And it's always the start of something that's good. And so, yeah, it starts with a lot of times, hey, like the goal is quit the job. Then you quit the job, you want to make more money. Then you make more money. You're like, wait a second, I think it'd be super cool. I've had this friend for a long time that, you know, I'd really love to hire in my business. That's not always a good move, but it may be your desire, right? And so it's like, okay, you maybe the bigger picture thing is I want to scale and create opportunity for people. And then you start, there's one of my favorite things that ever happened to me at Norman & Young feeling wise was, it was a day when a shoot was booked, not by me, it was by our admin at the time, our ops manager. And then another photographer went to that shoot that wasn't me. And then somebody else edited those photos. And then somebody QC'd them, and it was delivered back to the client, and the client was happy. That's cool, right? It's like, wow, that system worked. And so you start having these wins at different levels that are really fun. And you're like, well, that's pretty awesome. And it was, you know, cool as the business grows and you're able to create more opportunity for people. And it's not a selfless thing. I think when people say that, they're like, oh, it's giving back. Like, there's a big element of that, but it's gratifying to you when you create something that allows other people to have things. So there is a selfless element, but it's really just like a cool. And so it's cool to always look at that next level and say, hey, what can I do? Like, what is the thing that I can do next? What is this asset that I've built created me the opportunity to do? And that's fun. It's never ending. I think a lot of people are probably going, man, if I could just get to that's not how it's going to be. And that's okay, in my opinion. Let's see.
Here's a great question. How often would we have availability to talk with our coach? I'll let the coaches answer that.
Whenever you'd like, Monday through Friday. And I mean, a lot of times we tell the student like every couple of weeks is good, but sometimes I had a student twice this week. He wanted 3. No, I said, you didn't really want 3, did you? He's just so diving in and trying to use this to grow himself and be successful. I wanted to add something because you were saying, Eli, like about the students, like their why. Interesting, I'm getting quite a few couples, and they want to build a business together for their life, their legacy. And it's so cool. Right before this, I was on with a couple, and it was their first call. And she's like, I really want to support him. And then eventually I'm going to quit my job. And it's like, I love that. They're building something together. I think that's really fantastic for gluing the relationship. We're accomplishing this together. It's huge.
Yeah.
So that's that why. And then family. Yeah. I don't want to be there for my children. And somebody wants to build the business and then their son will take it over.
Yep.
So
we've heard that one. I love that. Yeah. It's funny too, because a lot of our coaches, Colleen and her husband built the business together. Sophie's one of our coaches. Her and her husband built the business together. I think it is, having a partner in that way, do that with you is great. Not everybody has that opportunity. But if you do, that's a really cool thing. And it's fun, that's like the goal for a lot of people is you don't want to have to you have a relationship and you're gone 9 hours of the day or 10 hours. Like it's just different, and there's challenges working in any type of partnership, but I think those challenges are better than the downside. So thanks for bringing that up, Ariana. And as far as this specific question about how often you're available, we do one-on-ones and we do Slack, right? So you have, from a technical perspective, you have the ability to jump on a one-on-one, and those are every 2 weeks-ish. It's based on the roadmap, right? But Slack is all the time. We're always answering questions. And then the cool thing is it's not just, hey, this is your coach, that's all you get. We have group calls every day. Most of the days there's 2 of them, right? And so the question you're probably asking is am I going to be supported? And the answer is there should never be a question that you don't get the answer to. Sometimes it'll be big picture meetings with your coach where you're like, where are you at on the checklist? Sometimes it'll be, hey, I need tech help. Go to the tech help channel. And our coach that knows that is going to jump in. The thing that I think I misunderstood when I was first building my business is a strong business is not a business where everybody knows everything. I don't know everything about our business. That's why I have a great leadership team. And that's why we have great coaches, because no person can know it all. So, let's say Ariana doesn't know the answer to your question. Well, it's not just up to her. She can be like, Jared, this is a systems issue. Kenny, this is an Instagram method client acquisition issue. And even for me, I think a lot of times I get a lot of the credit for building Norman & Young and building any of our businesses because I'm the one yapping away on a camera. But my secret is the team I have. And the cool thing is when you work in coaching, you work with my team. And they're the ones that built the business. They're the one that operate the business. I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's a secret that it's a secret that's not so secret, right? A lot of business owners completely misunderstand. It's not about being good at everything. It's about getting your business to a place where you can be able to have people on your team that are good at things you're not. Because it's so funny looking at Norman & Young now, I don't know half the processes that go on because I didn't build them, right? Jared built them, Trent and the team over there, Kayla, they all are involved in that. So that's really the secret. And you get access to that knowledge. So I think that's cool. Let's see. Can the industry, let's do one more and then we'll be done for the night. Let's see. A lot of teams in here. That's cool. Can the industry be too saturated for business? So this is a good one to end on. There is not, from what we've seen, something such as too much saturation. There is plenty of people not operating a good business. They don't serve their clients in the way the clients want to be served. Their services are not set up in the way that makes the clients want to work with them. And there's probably a lot of other photographers in some markets that are doing those things. And so there's this thing, the quote I like, which is there's never a bad time to start a good business and never a good time to start a bad business. And so you can have, when we talk about good or bad businesses, that's not just industry, that's also your business. So some businesses are just worse than others. And so that's why we think whether you choose education through us or education anywhere else in the world, the key to building a good business is knowing how and knowing what people are successful have done. And so that's the biggest thing. If I look back at building my business over it's been 11 years now, it feels like 30 minutes, but over the last 11 years, the slowest time was the time when I wasn't willing to go learn from others. And I just tried to make all these mistakes myself and do it on my own. I look back and what the heck was wrong with you? It was about 5 or 6 years ago now when I kind of changed my perspective on that. I started watching more YouTube stuff and I listened to podcasts and I joined coaching programs. And now I'm my team is Eli, you got to stop. I spend money on for coaching programs on the Amex, I'm crazy or something. And I just learned that it is the shortcut, whether it's coaching, going to a conference, buying a book and putting in the time to listen to it. It's not always a financial cost. It's crazy how much you can move ahead by just not relying on what you know and what you've experienced. There's a Tony Robbins quote where he says a book is summing up a decades of someone's life into an afternoon. And that quote got me 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, man, that's true. Because every time I read a book, I'm inspired, I'm excited. So the biggest thing I'd say is find education. To my team and everybody, Rod, Dave, Karen, Ariana, Brad, Kenny, I think I got everybody that's here. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And for everybody else, we'd love to work with you in coaching. The link is below, replaunch.com/apply. You get to talk with our team and hopefully work with one of our coaches. And I'd love to see you in one of my calls as well. So thanks to my team for being here, and we'll see y'all soon. Look forward to seeing you in coaching. See you, everybody.
Thank you.